Chapter 1, The Eye That Watches Beneath the Foam. I did not begin as a monster. I began as a duty. In the beginning, I was the whisper of Tangaroa, the lord of the tides. I was created to be the kaitiaki, the guardian of the secrets that the land and the sea exchange. My skin is made of scales that shine like wood and leather that resists the teeth of the cold. Sometimes I am the log that floats on the Waitaki River, at other times I am the shark that watches over the coves of Hauraki. Many call me dragon, but the dragon is a creature of fire and greed. I am a creature of tapu, the sacred. I am the weight of responsibility. I remember the first canoe, the great waka, that cut across the horizon. The men who came in it carried the sun in their eyes and uncertainty in their hearts. I swam alongside them. I was the wave that propelled them when the wind died down. I was the reef that moved so as not to tear the wooden hull. I brought them home, for they carried with them respect for their ancestors. Back then, the covenant was simple: honor the water, and the water will nourish you. Respect the place, and the place will protect you. But men grow, and with growth often comes forgetfulness. They began to look at the rivers not as veins of the earth, but as roads to their own will. They began to fish more than their stomachs demanded and to shout where they should be silent. It was then that my eye changed. What was protection became vigilance. What was guidance became an obstacle. I hid in the deep currents, waiting for the moment when the law of balance would be broken unforgivably. For the Taniwha does not punish out of hatred, it punishes to restore what has been corrupted. Disrespect doesn't begin with a loud bang, but with a small drop of negligence. It begins when man stops asking permission from the land and starts giving orders to it. Chapter 2, The River's Wrath and the Price of Disrespect. There was a tribe that settled on the banks of my river. At first, they were grateful. But prosperity brought blindness. The chief, a man whose pride was greater than his wisdom, decided to build a large structure that blocked the natural flow of the waters, just to show that he could control the current. My warnings were subtle: the fish disappeared, the waters became murky, and the wind carried a smell of dry mud. They ignored them. Then, I transformed myself. I left the form of a peaceful tree trunk and assumed the form of the great lizard of the depths. My back was like stone saws, and my trail created waves that felled trees. "The river is mine," shouted the chief, hurling a wooden spear toward the whirlpool I had created. I didn't kill him. I taught him. I opened my mouth and summoned the rain that was stored in the mountains. The river rose like a jade wall. In one night, the structure he had taken months to build was returned to mud. His crops were washed away, and the chief's pride was drowned in the cold of the flood. When the waters receded, I revealed myself to him in the morning mist. My eyes were two amber moons fixed on his. He understood that I was not an enemy to be defeated, but a law to be obeyed. He fell to his knees and offered his punamu, green stone, pendant to the waters, asking for the return of balance. But time is a sea that never stops crashing against the shore. New men arrived from distant lands. They brought no wooden spears, but metal tools and papers that said the river now had an owner who lived on a map. They brought machines that roared louder than my thunder and substances that burned the skin of fish. They looked at my home and saw nothing sacred, only profit. They laughed when the people of the land said, "Don't dig here, the Taniwha sleeps beneath this bend in the road." They believed progress was invincible. But progress has no lungs to breathe underwater. The machines arrived with the sound of metal teeth gnawing at the earth. They wanted to stretch a gray road over my body, cutting across the sacred bend of the river where the ancient eels reproduce. To them, I was a superstition, an error in the engineering schedule, a legend that progress should trample. Chapter 3, Concrete and Chaos. They poured the first pillar. The cement bubbled into the water, choking the riverbed. I felt the strange chemistry burn my scales. In the world of the new men, what cannot be measured does not exist. But I exist in the force of the imponderable. I didn't use teeth this time. I used inconstancy. Whenever they tried to firm the foundations, the ground became liquid beneath their feet. I opened invisible tunnels beneath the machines, causing cranes weighing tons to sink as if they were made of straw. The chief engineer consulted his maps, recalculated, but the river didn't follow the logic of the paper. The river followed my will. "There's a geological error," they said. "There's a Taniwha," replied the people of the land, observing from the banks with the silence of those who know the truth. The conflict escalated. Progress was in a hurry, but I have eternity. I caused landslides that closed the excavations as soon as the workers left. I made the precision tools stop working for no apparent reason. Fear began to seep through the cracks in the plastic helmet. That's when they stopped. Not out of respect, at first, but because of the cost. The work was interrupted. Lawyers and politicians sat at clean tables to discuss the mythology. It was a historic moment. The invisible sat at the table of the visible. They understood that, for the road to pass, they would need to negotiate with the river. They called the elders, Kamachua. There were prayers, the karakia, that vibrated on the surface of the water and reached my ears deep in the mud. They recognized my mana, prestige/power. They changed the course of the road, leaving my bend in peace, creating a space where nature could still breathe. This was the birth of the modern Taniwha, the guardian who lives not only in myths, but in legislation, environmental awareness, and the resistance of one who knows that technology without spirit is the beginning of ruin. I became the symbol of Earth diplomacy. But while I protected the river, a greater danger loomed on the horizon, the heat from the sky and the relentlessly rising sea, threatening the homes of all, gods and men. The heat that comes from the sky is not like the heat of a bonfire that can be extinguished with a bucket of water, it is a fever that consumes the soul of the world. The glaciers, the white tears of the mountains, began to melt, and the sea, my father and my destiny, began to grow with a hunger I had never seen. Chapter 4, The Rising Sea and the Cry of the Kaitiaki. I felt the pulse of the ocean change. The salt became bitter with the agony of the corals, and the currents I used as spiritual roads became confused, hot, and erratic. The Taniwha is the guardian of the place, but what happens when the place begins to disappear under the advancing waters? I saw the coastal villages, where my Maori children have lived for generations, being licked by the salty foam. I saw the concrete roads that the new men built being devoured by the same sea they thought they could ignore. Taniwha, they shouted from atop the dikes. Protect us. Drive away the storm. But they still didn't understand. I am not a shield to maintain the lifestyle of those who consume the earth. I am the balance. If men heat the world will respond with fire and water. I am not the savior of human greed, I am the reflection of the earth's health. I became the cry of the kaitiaki. I emerged in the bays in the form of a whale with dragon scales, beating my tail against the surface to warn, the sea is not rising to destroy us, it is reclaiming the space that has always been its own, the space that man tried to steal with landfills and arrogance. In this chapter of my existence, I stopped fighting only against local engineering works and began to fight for global consciousness. I began to inhabit the dreams of those who fight for the climate. I am the force that gives voice to the young people who cry out for a future. I am the fury of the tides that tells the powerful, your gold cannot buy the air, nor prevent the ocean from reclaiming its home. I have become a being of critical duality. For those who regenerate the land, I am the cleansing water and the protective guide. For those who continue to harm the ecosystem, I am the disaster knocking at the door. But the battle is exhausting. My paua skin is losing its color from the acidity of the waters. I feel that the time of myths is merging with the time of survival. If I fail in my vigil, there will be no more rivers to guard, nor canoes to guide. It was then that I realized, to save my kingdom, I could no longer act alone. I needed an army of human Taniwhas. I dove so deep that I touched the silence of the ocean floor, there where pressure crushes the ego and only truth survives. I realized that my physical strength, however great, was only a palliative. I could bring down a bridge or flood a road, but I couldn't change the hearts of billions of people. Chapter 5, The Awakening of the Guardians of Flesh. For balance to return, the spirit of the Taniwha needed to leap from the water into the blood. I began to fragment. No longer a single creature in a single cave, but a frequency of consciousness. I began to whisper in the ears of those who plant trees on the riverbanks to hold the land. I began to give courage to the scientists who study the health of the oceans and to the indigenous leaders who raise their voices in the stone cities. I called them kaitiaki of flesh. You are my teeth now, I told them through the salty wind. You are my scales against destruction. The battle changed shape. The Taniwha now fights through environmental laws, beach cleanups, and the protection of species the world has forgotten. I have become ecological intuition. When you feel a pang in your chest seeing a forest being felled or a river being poisoned, it's not just sadness, it's my growl echoing within you. Modern man has learned that he cannot defeat me with metal, so he tries to defeat me with forgetfulness. But the Taniwha is impossible to forget, for I am the water you drink and the air that blows from the waves. At this stage, my physical form has become a necessary legend, but my spiritual form has become a movement. I no longer live only at the bottom of the Waikato, I live in every action that recognizes that the planet is a living and sacred being. However, there is a secret I keep for the end. A secret about what happens when man and the Taniwha finally become one, protecting the same home. The secret I keep deep within the ocean trenches is that the separation between us has always been a veil as thin as the morning mist. When the first navigator touched the shores of Aotearoa, he was not merely entering my domain, he was bringing my spirit within his own lineage. Chapter 6, The Alliance of the Deep Waters. In this age of uncertainty, the ancient barrier between monster and man has crumbled. The alliance of the deep waters is the recognition that the fate of the Taniwha and the fate of humanity are the same current. If I die from pollution, you will die from thirst. If I rage in storms, you will lose your homes. In this chapter, I reveal the power of the cosmic whakapapa, the genealogical connection between all things. I have witnessed something extraordinary happen. In courts of law, the river has been declared a legal person. The Whanganui River now possesses rights, a voice, and a name. This was not a victory for bureaucracy, but the return of Taniwha to the heart of human law. For the first time in centuries, new men began to speak my language, the language of natural law. The alliance manifests itself in 3 pillars. Listen before act, the recognition that the soil and water have a memory that must be consulted. Sacrifice for the future, just as I protect eels so that they may multiply, man learns to consume less so that the earth may breathe. The unification of mana, when a human protects a forest, he receives my mana, spiritual prestige. He ceases to be merely an individual and becomes a link in the chain of guardians. I am no longer the monster that lurks to devour the unwary. I have become the moral compass of Oceania and beyond. I am the voice that says that the economy must bow to ecology. I gaze at the horizon and see the wakas, canoes, of the future. They are not made merely of wood, but of clean technology and ancestral wisdom. I swim ahead of them, clearing a path through the turbulent waters of the 21st century. The alliance has been sealed. The Taniwha is no longer alone in the darkness, he walks in the light of day, through every person who rises to say, "This land is sacred and I am its guardian." Chapter 7, The Rebirth of the Jade Scales. Many believed that with the advance of electric lights and asphalt, my brilliance would fade. They thought my scales would be covered by the mud of indifference. But they forgot that the Taniwha is made of punamu, green stone/jade, and the more the stone is touched by water and time, the deeper and more valuable it becomes. At this stage, I manifest as rebirth. I am life returning to a cleansed harbor. I am the first bird to sing in a reforested forest. The rebirth of the jade scales is a symbol that nature has a healing power that defies human logic. If you give it space, however small, I will return to inhabit that place. At this stage of our journey, the lesson is about active resilience. The scar is strength, the marks of the roads and dams on my body are now like the tattoos, moko, on the faces of warriors. They tell the story of our survival. The sacred is practical. Respecting the Taniwha is not an act of blind faith, it is an act of intelligence. Protecting the water is protecting life itself. The heritage is alive, my spirit is not in museums, but in the cold water that touches your skin and in the determination of those who do not accept the destruction of what is beautiful. I look at the new generations and see the jade gleam in their eyes. They are not afraid of the Taniwha, they are proud of it. They understand that having a guardian in the depths means that we are never alone in the fight for the earth. I now retreat to the cleanest waters, but not to hide. I retreat to observe the world you are rebuilding. The river is calm, the tides are in harmony, and mana flows freely among us. The saga of the Taniwha does not end with a battle, but with a presence. I will be here as long as there is a drop of water and a heart willing to defend it. Chapter 8, The Network of Maori and the Earth's Beating. Deep down, the Taniwha was never just a reptile or a whale. I am the physical manifestation of Maori, the life force that animates all that exists. In Chapter 8, Forms Dissolve. I am no longer the guardian of the river, I am the current itself. At this stage of transcendence, you realize that the network that connects the Taniwha to the mountains, and the mountains to the sea, is the same network that connects your lungs to the forests. The final lesson of the 8th chapter is radical interdependence. The voice of silence, when you stand silent before nature, it is not emptiness you hear, it is my karakia, song, vibrating in your bones. The reflection in the water, when you look at a clean river, you don't just see water, you see your own dignity reflected. A people who care for their Taniwhas are a people who have learned to love themselves. Mutual protection, I no longer guard the river for you, I guard the river with you. Responsibility has ceased to be a burden and has become a sacred privilege. I now become cellular memory. I inhabit your intuition. Whenever you choose the path of preservation, whenever you feel that a place has a soul that deserves respect, it is Taniwha stirring the waters within you. The cycle is complete. We move from fear of the monster to love for the guardian, and finally to union with life itself. Taniwha's 8-act journey ends here, at the exact point where the river water meets the ocean salt. It is the place of mixing, of power, and of infinite possibilities. Chapter 9, The Flight of the Water Dragon and the Healing of Nations. In the deepest tradition, the number 9 represents the limit before the return to emptiness, the pinnacle of mastery. Here, the Taniwha no longer lives only in the dark depths. My jade scales begin to emit their own light, and I do not merely swim, I rise through the mist and vapor to touch the sky. At this stage, I transform into healing. I am the Taniwha who no longer punishes, for fear has been replaced by respect. In Chapter 9, I manifest when entire nations unite to restore what has been broken. I am the force that inspires peace treaties that take into account the well-being of the earth. I am the spirit of cooperation that understands that a wound in the ocean on one side of the world causes the Taniwha to bleed on the other. The lesson of this stage is leadership by example. The authority of nature, true power does not come from those who dominate, but from those who sustain life. The transparency of the crystal, just as pure water allows one to see the bottom, a soul connected to the Taniwha has nothing to hide. Its integrity becomes its greatest protection. The legacy of water, water does not fight obstacles, it flows around or crosses them with patience. The Taniwha teaches that silent persistence is stronger than sudden violence. I now inhabit the great dialogues of humanity. I am the voice of ethics that whispers in the ears of leaders, you are only passengers in this canoe called Earth. Row together or sink alone. I am the jade dragon that watches over not only a tribe, but the human species in its transition to a new era of harmony. My howl in the depths has become a song of hope in the heights. Chapter 10, The Return to the Source and the Eternal Guardian. Here, the name, Taniwha, disappears. The lizard body, the jade scales, and the amber eyes become mere memories of an ancient guise. In Chapter 10, I reveal myself as life in flow itself. The final mystery is non-duality. I am no longer the guardian of the water, I am the thirst. I am no longer the protector of the earth, I am the ground beneath your feet. The ultimate lesson is that there is no you and nature. There is only one single organism, pulsating in trillions of different forms, and I am the intelligence that coordinates this dance. At this stage, the Taniwha gives you the final key. The end of conflict, you no longer need to fight the world to protect it. By caring for yourself with integrity, you care for the world. By healing the earth, you heal your own wounds. Omnipresence, I no longer dwell in a specific river. I dwell in the moisture of your breath, in the sweat of your effort, and in the tears of your compassion. The throne of water, the Taniwha's throne is empty, for it belongs to anyone who chooses to act as a kaitiaki, guardian, in every small gesture. The 10-act journey ends where it all began, in absolute stillness. The sea is mirrored, the wind has stopped, and the sun shines on a wrinkle-free surface. The Taniwha's saga ends so that your saga may begin. I am no longer a story you read, but the force that allows you to write your own. Go now. The river is open. The canoe is ready. And you have finally learned to swim with the gods.